Hello, hello. Oh man, this is terrible. My lighting is absolutely brutal. As always, I have forgotten to do something right off the rip. So give me a sec here. We're gonna go ahead and jump over. Let me get my lighting fixed here. It is Casual Friday around the old jitcadcam's establishment, and I don't want you guys to see me in my lovely Hawaiian shorts. You can see I'm keeping it very casual and 70s like. Feel like this shows off the beard a little bit more than normal. But Stuart, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. We see quite a few people up in here already. You guys can hear me okay? You can see me okay? I'm not too loud, am I? Hey, Travis in the chat again. Let's go. We'll give this a few minutes as always. We want to make sure everybody gets their opportunity to jump in. I'm good? Awesome. I've tried to adjust my audio a little bit more. Looks like I'm to the high side here. It turned down just a bit, so I'm not quite smashing off the top. There we go. Sound any better? A little clearer? Great. We're gonna do a couple of different weird things off the start today. I've seen a lot of people complaining about this whole transfer to team thing, and I think this is a really good opportunity to show you guys a few things off the start. And then I think we're gonna jump in because I've had a few customers lately kind of pointing out and asking about machine simulation and Fusion versus Complete. Now, I am going to say off the start, Complete is great, and I'm not going to be showing Complete here today, but I think for most people, especially this customer in particular, if they're out there, they're going to notice that Fusion simulation is basically Complete at the end of the day. So, JC, how's it going? You guys ready to jump into this or what? Before I kick everything off, guys, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe if you guys enjoy this content. Every week we try to get the next Friday video put up, of course. Feel free to hit the notification, or if you are subscribed, you already have those notifications turned on. So audio's a little choppy. I'm probably cutting out just a hair. Is that any better? Let me do this. I'm going to turn myself down here, but turn myself up on the old microphone. That should be any better? Going once, going twice. Check, 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 Travis. Thomas, what's going on, buddy? Thomas has consumed absolutely all of my time this week working on an Akuma, Akuma LB3000 post. So, all right, let's switch screens and get to the good stuff, right? Well, first and foremost, we don't need to be in Fusion. Give me a sec, because I actually need to pop out another window. So give me a few moments here. So as you guys may or may not know at this point, a lot of you have been forced to switch over to the good old-fashioned transfer to the Fusion team, right? So one of the things to keep in mind is a lot of you have upgraded. However, a lot of people have come back to me and asked about the idea of transferring projects still under the new team arrangement, right? So as you can see, there's actually a web page here, and I am going to put this web page in chat for anybody out there. Is in the event that you do, oh, looks like we can't post that in chat for some reason. We'll have to figure out a better way to put that. Is for those of you out there, if you search the transfer button is missing, there's actually something new you need to do when transferring a project, and until they fix this, is if you come down here to the bottom. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot. Did I grab the wrong link? There's no way. Right here. This is what we're looking for. There is a request projects transfer now. So back in the older ways of doing things, you could transfer a team or a project before it was a folder level controlled situation. You now need to do a request so that you all know we're going to go ahead and click on this link and see if it takes me anywhere today. But you're going to fill out this form, you're going to plug in your hub ID information, and with that being said they will then manually transfer that project on the back end from you to whoever. Now keep in mind, you still need to at least be, a admin, as they say right here, Fusion Hub administrator in the source hub, and then at least a member on the destination hub. So I don't know if you guys remember a few weeks ago, we did some video content where trying to think of the best way to show you this without causing a bunch of problems, is I actually set up a team, and then from that team, we actually upgraded it, and then I merged it over and transferred it. But that's why I have this random Phil Brown's asset folder when I converted my team, right? So now I had to move everything out of this Phil Brown assets folder into the other assets folder, of course. So with that, as you can see, at any time now, if I wanted to transfer, let's say, the porting project, hint, hint, this is some content we're going to be bringing to you guys here in a few weeks, but you can no longer do the traditional transferring of the project, right? You have to go out and you have to fill out that lovely form, and then they will manually transfer your project. Now, the next part of this is after you transfer this project, somebody has actually pointed this out, is there was a lot of problems with the linking of their files, losing their references. And good thing for you guys, old Fusion Phil over here actually got the next article I'll bring up, is your external reference location in another team. So this is a false warning usually, and what you need to do is actually quite easy to do, is you need to go out and you need to clear your cache, right? So this is commonly what is going to fix this, is clearing the local cache data from that actual project being moved or that data being lost in the background. So, of course, it's not a normal free support Friday unless I'm dumping on you guys a bunch of just technical difficulties on the back end. So you all can stop asking me how to do it. I can just point you to this video. How's everybody doing outside? Looks like my audio is doing better. Thomas, of course, is living the Akuma dream right now. But again, I'm going to try to figure out, can I put this in chat? Probably not for some reason. There we go. So that is that support article right there for you guys. That is how to clear your cache. The other support article that we have here, go ahead and do the transfer of the projects. Maybe it'll take it this time. It will not take it this time, and I have no idea. Is there a period or something? I don't know why this one just won't go. Pretty crazy. For some reason, I can't share this one with you guys, but as you can see, if you simply search this title, you'll find it. So let's get back over to Fusion. Let's talk about Fusion machine simulation and all the things that it is doing nowadays, as well as a couple of machine sim problems that I see quite a bit. Before I do so, I am going to remind you guys, if you have questions at any time or any issues that you're having, whether you're watching live or watching this at a later date, feel free to use that support email down below to send in a part file and questions you may have. Now, if you're like a lot of you guys out there, of course, you guys know you can support me in a lot of ways, to include buying me beers. And I want to know, in chat, I've heard a lot of people say that the buying the beer option is great, but they wish they could buy me a steak dinner instead. Should we add a steak dinner option as well? Again, keep in mind, I do have a fridge full of beer out in my garage that's probably good until at least July. But at this point, we may add another option. Let me know in chat. Let me know in the comments if you guys think that would be enjoyable. But always, you could use the info@email down below as well. That allows you guys to go ahead and send in any questions, or if you guys need help moving those licenses over to us. So let's get to it, right? Let's crack open a cold one. In this case, we're going to go ahead and do a bubbler because, well, this is what my wife drinks, and it's the only thing left in the fridge that I am going to allow myself to drink on stream. So thank you guys all last week as well. Just so you guys know, Jordan should be getting his case of Celsius energy drinks today nonetheless. So he also thanks you guys as well. So as you guys may know in Fusion, I'm going to jump over a few steps. I don't have a jig and a fixture in here. Of course, you guys have seen all the content out there on jigs, fixtures, parameter vices. I've seen people go as far inside the software now to set up configurations even at the end of the day for their vice arrangement, right? When you get into a multi-setup part, again, you may be going on the 5-axis for 2 setups, into the 3-axis for a 4th or a 3rd setup type of configuration. So, under manufacture, as you guys can see, and this is a big one because I had a customer today nonetheless reach out, and you guys are going to see this machine sim here, but they are still under the impression, and I'm not making fun of anybody here, but they still go in and they only do a toolpath simulation. Now, this customer runs multiple 5-axis machines, and as you guys remember, you know, the toolpath sim inside of Fusion only gets you so far. As well, it does run a little bumpy and a little glitchy. Now, you don't need a machine to run machine simulation. Now, in my opinion, it does run a lot smoother and cleaner even though there's not a machine tied to this, right? So maybe Autodesk will watch this video. They'll go ahead and send us, put us a comment down below telling us that it's a different kernel, or maybe it's an optimized kernel running it. But as you guys can see, it is getting a little bumpy there and a little glitchy, but we are pretty much ready to rock and roll. So first and foremost is the idea of actually setting up a machine or copying a machine over, right? So as you guys can see here, I've actually already built the new UMC 400 in here. This is ready to go. If you guys buy one, let me know. I have the machine sim set up. But you can easily go to the default Fusion library. A few other machines specifically from this customer, they actually had a DMG. So we're going to go ahead and hopefully get down to the alphabetical side of things. And they had a monoblock 75. So as you can see, a lot of machines are already built in here. Now, where we come in as jitcadcam for you guys, we have the ability button to go in and actually modify these, help you guys walk through processes, and I'm going to show you probably the #1 question I get asked about machine selection. But again, you can copy this over. We could go ahead and paste it into whatever folder we're working with. Again, making sure that you have that. So let's go ahead and throw this on the UMC 400. Now, by default, this machine is going to have to download if this is your first time. And I'm going to go ahead and flip this back because normally it is based on stock box point. And as you can see, my part is now sitting on my machine sim ready to go. So I am going to pause here real quick because I do see Elijah out there putting a million things into chat. Snapped a 1/2-inch end mill last night because it was squealing in 1018 steel on my Haas machine. I keep hitting spindle 10% button, turning the spindle speed down until the squealing went. Should I have hit the feed button too? I was thinking the feed and speed ratio was off. I should have hit both buttons. Elijah, what I would actually recommend you do, if you can provide it, you have like the EPDI number to that specific tool, and I'll show you how I would set it up to run it. But with that, let's go ahead and pivot back until he gets that inside of chat. So again, we have our part position. Keep in mind, guys, I don't have the actual vise in here because if I did have my fixture, and I have videos on this, feel free to go watch it. If you guys want me to build a fixture on Free Support Friday, let me know. But we're going to go ahead and place our part, and then with that, we have that ability, of course, to move it around or to place it very precision based on our machine, right? So, all right, there we go. We got a Haas EPDI number. Let's go ahead and see what we get from this. So give me a sec, guys. I'm searching this on the other page. All right, so this is the end mill that he's referring to and says it is squealing and make a ton of noise. Well, first couple of things I would actually point out before we get too deep into this, that is a 2-inch length of cut, meaning you're almost 4 times the diameter length. So you are going to have to be a little gentle on something like this. But let's go ahead and see if we can't find a few other things. As you can see, this is rated for steel, stainless, high temps. He was working in 1018, which is steel. And from that, I'm going to go ahead and pull this from the actual Autodesk feeds and feeds, as well as the library. So here we go. And what I'm going to do is, actually, we're in the wrong spot. So let's go to our tool library now. And in the case of this, I've already imported the old Haas tooling catalog. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to search based on what he gave me. And right there is the actual default tool inside of the Haas library. Again, I've imported this from the Autodesk website. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this tool. And I'm going to go up to the top wherever I'm working. Now, if you have a shop crib at any time, you could go ahead and paste that into your shop crib, of course. I'm just going to throw it right here inside of my simple enclosure. My brain is not working. How's your guys' weekend going, by the way? Because I am just mentally not into it at this moment. As you can see, we have that tool copy and pasted in. If I go ahead and edit that tool, obviously the first place I would start to look, you have your cutting data chart. Now, a lot of these down here, for some reason, have errored out recently, and it's because there is no step over. However, this is slot milling toolpath, so just keep in mind when you guys are looking at this. I guess I should probably pull my chat back up to see who's all talking. Yep, so you're doing a full length depth of cut. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go up. So one, we know it's a P value. Now you have side milling, of course, P0 through P5. So based on that information, I think my Autodesk is freaked out here a little bit. So I am going to, can we bulk delete in here yet? Of course not. Autodesk, you need to fix this bulk delete, please. Because for some reason, it's being a little bit of a pain. But as you can see, by default, it is recommending a 3/4 step down and a 250 step over. Now, this would not be ideal on a 1/2" end mill. Again, anytime you're more than half the diameter of the tool, so it looks like he's using 042. So I'm going to go ahead and go P0, 042. And then how much material were you removing, Elijah? The 042 with an adaptive clearing at 4 times diameter depth of cut. There we go. 82 inches per minute. Yeah, we're about spot on. You're a little higher in RPM and a little faster in inches per minute. But presumably what is happening here is because that tool is so long, he's getting deflection in the tool. Which, as he was doing, he was either running down, were you turning down the feed rate or the spindle speed? So you were turning down the spindle speed. Yeah, so usually I wouldn't turn down the spindle speed. I would start to mess with the feed rate a little bit more and go down or up, because what can happen, granted, this is a pretty hefty bite here. And of course, this tool isn't going to allow me to edit. So again, guys, Autodesk, if you see this, can we fix this? Do I got to re-import that library in the background? But what's going to happen is that tool is going to deflect while he is machining his part. So again, let's go ahead and I'm in the wrong area. One of them days, guys. So let's do a 2D contour. Let's grab that tool real quick. And he was doing, as I remember, it was a 1/2" diameter. There we go. But what can happen when you're running an end mill of this length, especially with this type of stick out, yes, I don't have my tool holder in here, but what could happen is as we're running, that tool has got to deflect and give, right? So sometimes you could be feeding too fast. Other times you could be feeding too slow. And that bite of the end mill makes all of the difference. Now, I learned this lesson a long time ago, that there is, one, a torque curve on your machine, and two, sometimes you're almost too scared to take a heavy cut, which causes a lot of your problems at the end of the day. Now, what I would almost guesstimate, and Elijah, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. If you want to send me the exact part file, what could have happened is, if you guys look here, I didn't really rough out this part, but it could be taking too big of a cut somewhere because it doesn't know where the stock is versus where the part is, right? So again, we do luck out in Fusion on these scenarios where if you do 2D adaptive clearing, for example, without stock turned on, it still technically knows what it can and cannot do and where to start into the part. And I've seen that get people in trouble, especially if your stock isn't represented properly, right? So a few things I would start with in Elijah's case. One, if it sounds terrible at the machine, first thing I would always check is to make sure my stock size in Fusion matches the part. Second thing would be, as he's done, is either I would go up a little bit in spindle, down a little bit in spindle, or up and feed, down and feed. And I usually only adjust by about 20% max, because anything outside of that, I should be coming back to the software and fixing or reevaluating what's happening. I think you're in a battle, in my personal opinion. You're using a 4 times length of flute, full depth of cut, and a 1/2" end mill, and you're just getting deflection at the end of the day. You're going 300. Okay, I was going to say, I hope you're not going 384 RPMs. That would be crazy slow. Yeah, so now you're at 4,000-ish RPMs and 40 inches per minute on the adaptive. Yep, so it looks like you've dialed it back to almost half of what your feed rate is. Does it sound any better, or is it still quite wild? Guys, we're also up to a record high right now. I don't know why 27 of you are here, but does your bosses know that you guys are here? I've heard shops put me up on the big screen. But as you can see, again, is what you would have to start to play with and what you would have to start to adjust. Now, 28. So the count over here on my fancy screen, which I'm getting a new monitor stand. So you guys, I'm going to put you guys above my actual webcam so I look at you while I talk. But I also have my live stream over on the other side, which is a little more up to date. But awesome. Working. Okay, so you just restarted the program. Again, if you could send me a photo of where it crashed and why it snapped, I'm happy to take a look at that as well. Because I've commonly seen it where possibly you hit the shoulder of the tool, again, coming around certain corners. Again, you guys saw those square corners. When you go to do a... Actually, this would be a pretty good example. Let's say we take 2D contour here. You guys didn't know this, let me know. I'm going to turn on stock, and then I'm going to give this multiple passes, right? Let's say we're going to do like 20 passes. Now, for a lot of you, you're going to know that Fusion will self-trim itself with the stock turned on. But as you can see, it's still making this first little tiny pass out here to clop those corners off. So again, turn my stock on so you guys can see this, is I've seen it where that corner is still there and it's clipped it as well. Sent photo in link. Did you do that on Discord or did you do that to my email? Let me get back to my chat. We got a million windows over here. So I see a few other people jumping in with questions. You'll email it real quick. Okay, cool. We'll wait on that. Zen, I see you out there. How to set up a parametric. Okay, video on how to set up the parametric vise with stock. Edit it by use parameters, which adjust the vise to stock size. How would I input my part inside of the stock in a logical way? That's a pretty good question. So the way I usually recommend people do this with jigs and fixtures, I gotta remember where my Kurt vise is. Give me a sec, guys. So here is my Kurt vise. I don't know how well this thing still works. It's been a minute since I've done this. Maybe we're due for a revision, right? So here's my part. I have a random parallel hanging out here in no man's land. Let's see why there's a parallel 2. Again, this thing looks a little broke, but I think it's still going to justify its purpose, right? So as you can see here, I have my stock built on this actual vise. If I wanted to put my part in here, I did answer a question about this to somebody else. I like to make a component for specifically the part, right? So with that part component sitting here, what do we want to use? Where's the folders at? If I wanted to put this part inside of my actual vise, I have a part component. And the reason for that is, one, it segregates that part out to be used later. But because everything is a component now, I could easily do a joint. And if I get on this top face and hold the control button, I can find that little square node, which gives me center of that top face. And then I can place that down on my fixture. Now, I am going to have to do a few things, as you guys are seeing. Maybe flip it over, turn it 90 degrees, and even drop the Z-axis so that I can face off this part. But the idea is still the same, that I've placed my part in my fixture using a joint at the end of the day. So again, if I was to adjust my parameters, we're going to find out how bad this vise still works. So we're 2 by possibly 3 by 3. And we're a little tight there. So let's say we cut that to 3. Let's go 3.125 length. And then width-wise, maybe it came out of a 2.5-inch bar, right? As you guys are seeing, as I'm able to update my stock. Now, keep in mind, my vise is a little broken, like we've talked about. So maybe we set these back to, oh, nope, that's going to be 2. This should be 1. I think I did a demonstration with this at one time for somebody and broke it pretty good. But as you can see, there's my stock. There's my parallels. There's obviously my vise jaws as well. Now, this gives me an idea. It might be worth having those actual hard jaws adjustable so you can make your make your setup a little easier when it comes to soft jaws, right? Again, we go back to manufacture. Now, this is the trick. This is the trick I think a lot of people miss is when you do your setup, if you're thinking ahead of yourself a little bit, I can preparatorily say my model is anything inside of that part component, right? So this is why I clicked the part component, not the end user part. So again, here, as you guys can see, we could go ahead and throw in everything. So we got our parallels. There's my part. I have a vise in here somewhere. Vise moving, vise fixed. And then I have everything set up to run, right? So again, is now by default, whenever I do my toolpaths, and again, this is the fun. So if we already had toolpaths technically tied to that setup, it would work very well for you guys. And then whatever part you basically bring in is self-recognized based on the tools and the toolpath you apply, right? So again, as you guys are seeing, I'm applying my toolpaths now. Everything is automatically populating and updating based on those settings. Cool. Questions outside of that? I'm going to go ahead and see about Elijah's email. Elijah, where'd you send it? Where did it go? Did you send it in Discord? I don't see it yet. Give me a sec. All right. Let's see. I don't see it. Oh, there we go. A video capture. Yep. So, presumably, just by what I can see here, I think you're taking way too big of a step over. I would look where your decimal point is. For all of you to see this, I'm going to go ahead and download this actual photo real quick and pull it up. Now, what I'm seeing, and I could be mistaken, Elijah, you're going to have to let me know, but I am looking at this. That is a very, very big cut right there. And judging by there's one at this end and one at that end, I am curious if you had a decimal in the wrong spot. So instead of 042, is it possible you were doing 420, not 42? Sounds good now. So, I mean, it sounds like, yeah, too much RPM might have been something, but I would double check to make sure that you're not taking too big of a cut here. Looking at the shavings a little bit, it looks like it's not too bad, but that is quite a cut to be having to take. Any other questions outside of that? I see a lot of you in here. Those of you that are first timers, of course, I am Fusion Phil over here at jitcadcam. Yeah, Ella, I've done it, man. I've done it. I learned the hard way. Coming from manual machines to a CNC, you calculate surface feet per minute based on a tool in aluminum on a Haas TM series. Find out real quick, that machine doesn't have, 20,000 RPMs, right? There we go. Looks like Elijah's up and running. He's running it right now, and he's live here in the chat hanging out with us. Any other questions outside of that, guys? So again, as you guys are seeing, is when we start to talk about machine simulation inside of good old-fashioned Fusion 360, this is what I love. Like, to me, anything that I can do before I ever touch my machine to ensure I don't have a collision is going to be the best thing I have, right? So right now, off the rip, I may have got lucky when I built this and it works the first time. I know there is one hang up that I got to fix. But as you guys can see, is if I was to run this, all of my tool changes, again, there's been a lot of new improvements inside of Machine Sim. The post processor actually now controls where your tool change position is, my tilting, my machining this way, my machining that way. But a lot of people, I think, have overlooked the fact that because of things like Complete, there's a lot of new things that have come through, right? So as you can see, we have our machining cycle going, but I can also do things like in real world, see the G code based on the post processor. So if I have an issue somewhere, I can identify what line item that is, whether I get the error at the machine or I get the error right here inside of Fusion. Now, I can also look at the issues themselves. So on this particular machine, we are over traveling the Z-axis because my tool, of course, is too short to actually achieve what's happening. Again, that's what this thing is actually telling me. So long before I get to my machine and have that over travel problem, I'm identifying it right here in real time. Deep thinker, I knew you were going to come in here. Brian Piet, I talked about assets before. You weren't able to last week. Did you not see what all of your assets are in? They should be in a separate folder, but I'm more than happy to help you. If you want to send me in a support ticket, we could do a screen share. Not here on live, of course. Harvey Performance has a few speeds and feed calculator that will get you close. That's right. I think every and any company kind of offers their own speeds and feeds kind of calculator. But again, as you guys can see, quite a lot of fun here that you have. Again, you can do things like stock to model. We have the ability to go in and anywhere you place your cursor, you can actually see the distance from the stock to the model. Over there to the right is 0.5. Of course, you can turn your machine on and off. Now, this is a big one that I do by default. I turn off the base all the time. I don't know why I don't like the base. It gets in my way. I think if you guys have caught our new feature cam content coming out, there was a line said that, like, you guys don't even like the doors on the machine when you're running. Why would you like them in machine simulation? So it looks like we got another question from Eliza. It looks like he's running a little different tool here, running it down to 3.39 with 0.7 cut. That 0.7 depth of cut, or what's your step over on that? So presumably if you're going to go deeper with a tool, and depending on that tool, of course, let's go ahead and see what we have. Why do I keep clicking the setup today is wild. But let's go ahead and jump into the good old-fashioned Haas tooling library. Swap out that part number. And it looks like they don't have that by default in here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on my other screen. That is like a die making long extension with a reduced shank. Again, for any of you out there wondering, this is what he's basically looking at. A longer version, shorter flute length, and then he has a lovely reduced shank so that he doesn't run the walls, right? So 5 flute, 1/2 inch, Weldon shank, 30 radius, and a 461 neck. So what we could do is we could actually plug this in. So I guess you guys are going to get a treat. You're going to get to see how to build a tool today. So what we're going to do again, I'm going to go to my shop crib in this case. I'm going to go ahead and say we're running this on our VF2. Let's clear out our filter. I am going to create a brand new tool, of course, from scratch. This is a bowl end mill because it has a corner radius. And something very nice to do is to put that product ID in there. And now we can run through everything. So I remember it's 5 flute. 0.5 diameter. Again, our shaft diameter is going to be reduced, so that's that 461. Overall length, I can't remember it off the top of my head. Let's see if we can't get it pulled up here again. And of course, I closed it out. Let's make a couple of guesses, right? Let's say it's 5. Length below holder, he's living dangerous at 4 inches of stick out. We do have a shoulder length versus a flute length. Now, on something like that, you might almost have the exact same dimensions. Now, keep in mind, we are going to show rubbing or collisions here if that shoulder hits, right? So I am going to reduce that down to 0.75 so that it matches my flute length. And then we, of course, have our cutting data. So this is where you're going to have to get this from your tool manufacturer. I'm, of course, going to have to open up this tab again so I don't eat my own words. And let's see if we can't find the old speeds and feeds here. So this is for stainless or high temp alloys. So not to say you may have bought the wrong tool there, Elijah, but it's not really rated for your steels, your mild steels. But let's see what the speeds and feeds on this is calling out. So again, this is a great chart from Haas to be able to go in and identify what it is that you need. He is running 1018 steel. Let's see here. We're going to scroll down a little bit. So we'll start on probably the faster end of the spectrum. Again, we have width of cut 1 times diameter, 1 times diameter depth of cut. That would be as if you were slotting, of course. But it does give you, again, 375 surface feet. That's looking at a 2.5 thou chip load, of course. And then about 25 inches per minute. So again, as we scroll down this chart, we're about the same. We start to slow down a little bit further as we go. Obviously, materials get a little harder. Again, this is not high alloy cast or anything. We're still in a low alloy kind of situation. But it's looking to be 275 and a 2.5 thou feed rate. Now, keep in mind there is a difference between slotting and side cutting, again, as you guys are seeing here. So we may have to make adjustments from that, right? So from here, it's telling us, let's see here, finish pass, 2% less. Reduce cut depth and feed by 50% for long flute or long reach. So even here, Elijah, it's telling you to reduce even further from what you're doing. So again, as if I go back and I kind of take an idea of what we have going on here, not the best of charts. I tend to like the charts that when they do it, they split this out and they give you a couple speeds and feeds. But we are going to go with a, let's see, doing a 2D contour. So it's a finishing cut. Okay. So it's still telling you, though, and this is, again, this is everybody and anybody's going to have their own opinion on this, is to reduce by 50% for long reach tools. So reduce the cut depth and feed. So again, we could change our cut depth and feed based on that information. I was wrong. That's not 1 inch. My brain is just having a hard time. It's 1 times diameter. 1 times diameter. So here we go. So let's go back and start plugging everything in. That was a 5/8, wasn't it? No, it was 1/2 inch. 5/8 where you hold on to it. So we're going to plug in that information. 275. Ready to go with that 2.5 thou. And as you can see, we're at 25 inches a minute to start. Now, again, what it's asking us is to reduce that by 50%. So I may actually take that down and probably start somewhere around probably 14. I think that's going to be a good starting point based on what they're giving it. So as you can see, again, I've gone through, plugged in my information. You could, of course, add in your step downs and step overs. It is 5/8. Yep, see, I was wrong. Again, we could redo the math on that, but I think you guys are justifying the idea behind it. That if he was doing his contour with that tool, I saved that as the right thing. I should have, right? Nope. Your guy saved that in the extra tool library. And then, of course, you wouldn't have stock turned on and a million finishing passes, right? But that's where I would go when it comes to calculating that type of stuff and doing the math on it is I always go back to the manufacturer chart to start. And then from there, make my decisions and make my changes. Any other questions outside of that in the meantime? Going once, going twice. Oh, you even sent in a lovely Instagram video about this too. Let me, how do I rewind this? Do I got to refresh? You guys want to see this video? You guys could tell me. You guys don't want to see the video? Should I base it off likes on this video real quick? Can we get everybody in here to like this video? Should I milk you guys for that? So, video he has, let me go ahead and pull it over here real quick. As you're seeing, is he is definitely getting after it with that big old chunk. So if you want to go ahead and go out there, you guys, Nocturnal Welding is actually who Elijah is and who he works for. But you can see how long that cut really lasted at the end of the day. And now she's running like a champ. There we go. What would be the best practice to share files with multiple users in different workstations? Well, so technically by default with the cloud, everything is shared across everybody. So a good practice that I always tell my customers is usually you don't want to have a million projects like I have, right? What I like to do is I like to set up a basically one project full of all the customers you may be doing work for. Now, I'm not going to open this up so you guys can see my customers, but if you go in and you look at the typical organization, it turns very much into like a Windows organization, right? Maybe you use work orders, maybe you use PO numbers, but you can file in and file out and show where those are all residing, and you could search as you guys saw me do earlier. Now, being able for two people to work on the same file isn't realistic inside of Fusion because somebody is always going to save over the other person. So I've had that asked a lot of times where, hey, my lathe guy is working on this, but I want to start prepping it for the mill while he's working on it. It's not very wise to do that inside the same file at the same time because what's going to happen is you guys are going to overwrite each other. But JC, I really hope that you guys aren't working on a million different teams, and if you are and need us to help consolidate it down, feel free to shoot us an info or an email. I'd be happy to help. Any other questions outside of that? I'm going to go ahead and check the ticket system, see who else is out there. You guys out there buying beers? Nope. That is not somebody buying beers. That is somebody buying, looks like training. Let's go. I don't know who it was. I'm not going to tell you guys who it was. Let's see. Awesome. Sorry, guys, I'm on the other screen right now. There's a million messages that I've apparently, when I start these live streams, that's when everybody wants to go in and put in a bunch of stuff. Makes sense. Awesome. Looks like we got that one checked off. Other questions? Any other questions? Any other problems? How long we been going? We actually haven't been going that long. Usually it dies down about an hour and 15. We're about 40 minutes into this. Anybody and everybody, we are here for you guys at any time you guys want any type of help, any questions, any problems that you're encountering. Did a Facebook post go out today? Usually a Facebook post goes out. Or was it most of you guys are just here from the good old-fashioned notification, right? Oh man, I'm trying to think what else I got for you guys. It's been a nonstop post week. Thomas has got me over here working 1 million hours on this post processor, all because you can't turn on and turn off the y-axis on an Akuma unless it's in the most perfect position ever. Using boundaries in 3D flat. I like that one. That's a good one. What kind of parts do I have that we can do? That sounds like a workflow Wednesday video, but we're gonna give it a go. See what 3D flat has to do. And then from there, we can make some decisions. So as you can see, it's pretty standard geometry selection. So we can go ahead and modify from there. Nice. Alrighty. So I need a part. Try to think if it's going to be easier just to draw something real quick. I think I'm just going to draw something. So if we had a part, let's make an open pocket over here. And we're going to go ahead and extrude all of this real quick down just a hair. And we're going to get that sketch turned back on so we could extrude everything else up. So if we were working with something like 3D flat, obviously 3D flat is going to grab anything and everything that is flat by default. So without seeing the part, Scott, it's going to be just a little tricky. As you guys would see, as we would do our normal setup, walk through the normal process, hit this with possibly an adaptive clearing. Again, we could use that fancy new tool that we built. Give that a second to figure out where it's going. Akumas are a pain. Travis, don't you guys have an Akuma LB3000? So as you can see, we've started to rough out our part. If we were to go in and do, as I like to do, I always like to finish the floors before the walls. is I always instruct people, and this is the big thing. We're actually going to be doing how much information can I give you? We're going to be doing a live event hosted somewhere that we're also going to be live streaming at the same time. But basically, as you guys know, always just hit the OK button. The funny thing about the OK button and Autodesk Fusion is sometimes it wants to do what is actually right. It's when the operator gets in the way to do something else. Now, in this case, the operator, in my case, is the problem because I picked the wrong toolpath. Thomas, there is no steak dinner button, but judging by the fact that you're willing to buy me a steak dinner, I'm going to add one. But if you want to buy beers, I'm always happy for beers as well. But as you can see, let's go back. Let's get into the flat toolpath, not horizontal, of course. And again, I like to just hit OK because as soon as I get blue lines on my part, I can troubleshoot everything from here. So my question right now back to Scott is going to be, Scott, where is the problem with the boundaries right now? Is it one of those situations where you've already faced this part off? Do you only want to do something in a certain boundary? Things like that. Let me know in chat. Trying to see here. I need to pull up my system because Scott, ever so lovely, did buy what I would equivalent to multiple steak dinners. But I want to make sure that my brain is in the right spot for what he is paying for because that's what I thought, 100%. He's actually buying some training from us over here. So, Scott, sorry, I'm still on the other page here. Give me 1 sec to jump back over. I need a third monitor at this point in my life, I think. You have smart machines. Travis, didn't we do a post-processor? I'm helping somebody with a post-processor, high gear, low gear type configuration stuff. But, Scott, if your questions, I'm still waiting on those questions in chat. I don't know if you disappeared. There he is. Part is a 5-axis vise, kind of funky, profiling, trying to avoid the vise. Okay. So, Scott, can you provide a model at all? And I'm happy to look at it. And are you, I assume now that you're saying this, is you're probably doing 5-axis flat, right? Deep thinker out there, shots fired. He's always fighting his smart machine. Love to see it, love to hear it. I had to tell somebody earlier today that, you know, on my side of the fence, it seems like every machine is the wrong machine nowadays. But then again, I only get the problems of the machine at my level. I don't get, like, nobody calls me to tell me their machine is just running good. Scott, can you provide a part? Let me know real quick, yes or no in chat before I get too crazy with this and start modifying a ton of stuff. So it's basically 3 plus 2 flat. Let me see what I could do on my side. Let's see what we can manipulate on this part. We're going to go ahead and throw a little draft angle in here. Hey, let's get crazy with it, right? And then technically, as he's saying, there's probably a vise under this. So I'm going to pull this down. Actually, let's leave it as is. And let's sketch up a very terrible representation of what could be a jigger fixture. This is going to be a lovely new component. I know you guys only come here to see my beautiful drawing skills inside of Autodesk Fusion. And then we do need to convert both of these to a component. So this is going to be my jig. And this is going to be my fixture. So if you're trying to avoid a fixture or something inside of Fusion, the big part here is going to be is in your setup. One, we need to make sure we have our model selected, of course. Let's go ahead and pick up our I named one jig and one fixture. It is. I'm done. I'm done. Today is over already in my brain. Thomas, we're not going to mess with your post one bit more today because my brain is just absolutely fried right now. So what we need is the fixture, even though that's not the fixture. And then the fixture needs to be the jig. So again, guys, if you're watching this video right now, I promise you I didn't start drinking yet. Promise. So Now that we have those two defined, and if I go in, and of course we are going to start with our good old-fashioned adaptive clearing. Now, you're already going to see the way this starts to work at the end of the day, because adaptive clearing is, again, taking in account of the fixture being in the way. So the first place I would point you, Scott, is I would say make sure that you have your jigs and fixtures associated to the setup, because everything else from there should, again, automatically recognize what it can and cannot do, of course, and start everything off with 3-axis, then, of course, jump to 5-axis. And now we're going to see if it's still going to avoid it or if it's going to make me a complete fibber. And like I figured, because there is one nice thing, even though people out there hassle Autodesk about updates and problems, is one thing is consistent. Usually most things work the same across the board. Well, that does mean that if something is broken, it means it's probably broken everywhere. But as you can see again, our fixture avoidance by default here is automatically recognizing how far away to stay from my fixture without clipping my fixture. Awesome. Scott actually sent in a part 2, so you guys get to see me butcher this in real time. So again, the fixture avoidance. Again, we're avoiding the fixture even here on the backside. So let me get this file pulled up. And he went ahead and shared a public link, so this is going to take a minute to download and import and do all kinds of fun stuff with. I see what you got. Is there a part inside that stock, or is it just that stock? Got to make sure I got to create a ticket real quick for somebody, one of my customers. How many people we got in here right now? 22. We're holding on tight. Let's go. I'm going to go ahead and get that all set up for that customer. As you guys can imagine, my work never stops around here. And for those of you that have called me extremely late at night, I usually pick up my phone until about 8 p.m. As well, we pick up our phone for some reason on the weekends as well. All right, there we go. We're going to upload. And let's go start it. Notify us when it's complete. Upload is complete. And there we go. Lovely part. Not going to suggest what I know what that part is, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. So what he's asking about is that flat toolpath, of course. It looks like in his setup, we have, okay, let's get everything kicked on here real quick. Beautiful. Now, here's where I think your problem is already starting to lie, right? So if I go back into your setup, you have your fixture and everything at the bottom, it looks like, but for some reason, your stock is in here. Okay, so I think we're good. For some reason, the stock is still on, but we'll check into that here in a minute. Usually when I update everything, it disappears. But if we do, like we've talked about, a flat strategy, multi-axis, and we're going to go ahead and give this 3/8 carbide end mill. And let's see what we get. Now, I am going to check something else out because I figured no flat areas found, which leads me to believe, yep, I think your stock is a part of your fixture right now. And that is what's causing your problem. So if we go back, frame, master, you have stock inside this folder or this component. So we want to make sure we don't select the actual stock, right? So there we go. See, now when I click, it looks like everything went away. So let's go ahead and see what we get this time. She's thinking. We might be right. What do you guys think? Betting on it. Is it going to work? I'm going to click off of it. It's done. What's the verdict in chat? Is it gonna do something that's better than nothing? Here we go. So one, I clicked the error, false alarm. But as you can see, granted, not roughed out or anything, but that flat toolpath has actually gone through and identified everything because the stock was originally told to be part of the fixture, And that was causing my first problem. Now, I guess my next problem for Scott in this case is going to be, Scott, do you want to change how it's doing these lines and these directions and all of that? Or are you just happy to get a toolpath on your part? Also, between Deep Thinker and Travis in chat, I'm super pumped that you guys are referring to each other and jumping onto our Discord channel to talk more. For all of you that don't know, we have a Discord channel sponsored by good old-fashioned jitcadcam. And this is why we do these types of meetings, is we like to connect you guys between different people with the same thing. As you can see, Scott is, of course, getting some live chat help as well. So let's see. We're going to go ahead and put it along the x-axis. So if I go back into that toolpath, current top pocket type. So I'm going to go ahead and say parallel. And now I can manually select a direction. So let's grab one of the long axes for X. And let's see what we get. How's everybody's weekend while this loads? You guys ready for the weekend? Who's working Saturday and Sunday? That's my question. So it looks like for the most part, we did get the direction to do quite a lot. However, there is a few areas where it looks like it's actually trimming the wall also while it comes down and around. No weekends yet. That's because you have like 8 machines, Travis. So again, as you guys can see, is by using parallel, changing the toolpath direction type and setting that direction, it is now running along the part. Now, keep in mind, although this is very automated in the world of setting it up in 5-axis, it still seems to be very much that we are having a few things that, of course... Oh, excuse me. These bubblers got me all gassed up. But as you guys can see, again, there's still a few things like the parallel on the ends is kind of doing more of a profile to clean up, stuff of that nature. So if you're looking for a fast toolpath, using that 5-axis feature and auto-recognizing flats might be the way to go. Now, if you're really concerned about those lines and how pretty everything looks and running the same direction, you may want to substitute it out for a more manual tool orientation type of way. 8 Saturday and Sunday. We got 2 Scotts in the chat now. We do have 2 Scotts. There we go. There's a new record. Scott, 8 Saturday and Sunday. Whew. Scott, what is it? Blevins? Do you, I'm going to say Scott B. Scott B, do you own your own shop? Is that why you're working weekends? Travis, you know what? It makes sense now. You don't work on the weekends. You're always at my Fusion Fridays. Has like 8 machines running. This guy's an animal. Any other questions from you guys? How we feeling? What are we thinking? Anything you want to see? Scott Chapman, I hope that kind of helps you out. Did that kind of clear things up? I know the big error off the start, like I said, I see this all the time, and this is kind of why when you guys start to mess around with components and build your jigs and fixtures, my organization on a jig and a fixture might be a little different. And I would show you that is when I actually am building out the entire fixture, I would add a component. What this component is basically going to be is like the base or the vise, right? Now, all of this stuff that it is the vise could go inside that component, narrowing it down. Now I just have stock or vise, right? So when we build those parametric vices, be wary of the organization of actually the way your parts are inside of that. And as you guys may or may not know, I'm also a big fan of a component or a part as well, as we showed earlier on that Kurt DX6. So we could go ahead and throw in the part, and then of course that part could be down in that part component as well. Now the machine construction here, I'm a little curious about, but it looks like, okay, so that's a containment boundary from my understanding, which looks like somebody watched one of my videos at one time where using a containment boundary of a sketch really allows for you to control that toolpath more where you don't normally hit your vise. Now, because the fixture avoidance inside of Fusion, we've kind of been able to steer clear of that a little bit. And to show that to you guys, again, if I was to run this part, let's say we're going to hit it with the good old-fashioned adaptive clearing. Let's stick with the 3/8. Tool orientation here is going to be really our best friend. And let's machine this thing from the side, right? So keep in mind, we don't actually have a tool holder here, which we'll need to add in. But again, because of our fixture avoidance, the real problem is we're now machining all the way under that part and it's floating in space. So again, if you guys have ever seen any of my videos out there, I do a lot of neat things, which instead of drawing that boundary, and to show you what that boundary is going to do here, is we're going to say selected boundary. Again, we're going to turn on that sketch real quick and grab that boundary. And then I may say tool center, possibly tool inside boundary, right? And what that is now going to do is limit that tool to only cut within that rectangle. So again, as you guys can see, we're not cutting all the way under the base anymore on this part. Elijah out there with the 2 beers. Let's go. If I only knew. Travis, do you own that place or are you just a slave to the system? Awesome. Scott, I look forward to talking to you more on our training session, of course. But again, this is kind of the cool thing about these live sessions. As you guys can see, we could easily throw this on a machine. And this is a perfect example. I wish I would have had this part off the rip. But as you can see, we can now say, I want to put that part down on my vise. If you wanted to, you could, of course, do a selected point to a selected point. Again, bottom center of this vise, because you spent all that money on the lug to put it down on the base. We're going to go ahead and zero out our Z so it sits nice and flat. And then from there, of course, we could go in and we could do our machining process, right? So I'm going to reorder this just because. We'll regenerate that real fast. So again, if that customer out there curious about Complete, as you guys are seeing, is I don't think there's a reason for Complete unless you would like a secondary insurance policy, right? Now, based on this, we have issues. We have a lot of issues. For example, that tiny little tool is causing things to slam into other things, and we're seeing this in real time. So I'm actually super happy that it's set up this way. Again, this is all stuff that we're seeing here long before we get to that machine, of course. As you can see, tons of collisions. I can now go back and make those fixes. So again, let's go ahead and jump back out of here. We're going to go into our tool. So let's edit our tool. And I am going to put this in just basically a generic holder. Looking for like a Cat 40. Should have a 1/2-inch end mill holder. That is not going to stick out anywhere as far as needed. Let's see what else we got in here. Got a ton of tools in here. There we go. There's like 4-inch stick out. Again, there's our tooling toolpath. And again, because of our collision avoidance and everything, we're still going to see a collision here. So I'm going to show you guys one more trick here. We're going to turn on what's called shaft and holder. And now what we could do is we could auto detect tool length. Or we could actually do what's called pull away, which means it's going to stay away from what it cannot reach. I'm going to auto detect tool length, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK and let that calculate. Jeff from Trinity. This guy bought me a 6-pack. You guys are out of control. Jeff, did you hear earlier? I'm going to start a buy me a steak program. Don't worry, guys. They're going to be like Walmart valued steaks. It's not a $40 steak dinner. Like a $16 steak. That's crazy. You guys are after it today. So again, as you can see, based on collision avoidance, look how far it pulled out this tool. But the reason again for that, as we're going to see here in a minute, is this tool needs to get all the way down to this point. But for some reason, this vise is still within 200 of my tool holder. That's why it pulled this thing out a mile. So I may need to make that decision. Do I want to allow this to get closer? Do I want a different tool holder? Again, very quickly here, we're going to go ahead and run the machine simulation on this. Make sure we don't have any problems. In this case, we got a ton of warnings. A ton of Z over travels again, I believe. Over traveling Z. And we could go in, and of course, the kinematics on this machine might be a hair off still. We've put it in a general area of where it could and couldn't work at this time. So again, there we go. And we're going to go ahead and find, where is that origin hiding? Turned on somewhere. In the part area. means it's all the way out at the part file. There we go. And as you guys can see again, machine simulation, being able to place that right onto what we're doing, quick and easy at the end of the day. You guys are killing me. You guys are buying so much beer. My wife already told me, she's like, might have to cut this off. I'm done with it. The new list of names, Party Phil. Party Phil. That's what happens on Saturdays when you live in the middle of nowhere. Or as my son calls it, Saturday is for the boys. When we get to go out and do stuff in the yard work, ride the four-wheelers, have a good time. So with that, awesome, Bogdan. Always Bogdan late again, man. You're killing me. No, thanks for coming in here, Bogdan. I appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions? You guys are out of control in chat right now. So I see Deep Thinker asking about a manufacturer model for a ball mill toolpath. How do I change over the model to add holes to the part without creating a new setup? Let me do a little thinking on this. This might take 2 or 3 read-throughs. As you guys know, there's a reason why most of us are machinists, and it's because, in my case, I'm illiterate. Start a setup with a manufacturer model for a ball mill toolpath. How do I change over to the model to add a hole to the part without creating a new setup? I see what you're doing. Okay, what toolpath, Deep Thinker, are you using the ball end mill for? And can you provide me a part model? Because there's a lot I can do here to show you. But I am going to go ahead and go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take a guess. What you really need to do is at the top setup level, your part needs to be your finalized part, right? So actually, this might be a good example. We have this lovely little hole here. However, when we're in our toolpath side of things, we can either override or add in addition to models, right? So always make your final product basically your setup. And then over here inside your individual toolpaths, this is where we can add in things like patches. We could add in a modified model if we need something like a certain fillet, things of that nature. We have that right here by adding into addition or overriding and using. You guys are getting a visitor again today. You guys checked it out last week. We got always have to have our visitor, as it seems. Oh, nope, she ran away. Never mind. She's back out of the room. Does she want to come say hi? She could come say hi. Come say hi. Hold on. Here comes the future again. There you go. You're over there. Do you see yourself? Say hi. Wave. No wave this week? No. All right. You want to say hi? You got to come over here. Ah, there you go. Wave. Awesome. You guys have any other questions? Opening it up to the floor for all of you guys. So it looks like that is the button. So I think I did some YouTube content on that model button. I did. Are you guys on my channel at all or on my video collection right now? I'm going to pull up my content on my other monitor. I feel like that's a Workflow Wednesday type video. Did we do it in a live? That's a real question. When and how to use model is the video that you are looking for. So I'm going to grab that link for you real quick since I'm here. But yeah, to say the least, the idea is that you could use that model button inside the toolpath to add to what you have or to swap out that model on the fly. Again, works great if you're patching or removing holes, things of that nature. Casting type work tends to come through kind of nice that way as well. How do I like my eggs? I eat my eggs sunny side up, man. Fresh from the chickens out in my chicken coop. You guys are getting out of control, I tell you what. Yeah. Jeff, I just saw your comment about Wagyu. Yes, sir. Funny thing, we went to a SHOT Show this year, me and a couple of my other customers, And basically, we went to this place. Have you ever been to like the hot plate where you like cook the steak and stuff right there at your table for yourself? Not hibachi. You cook it yourself. And they had all you could eat, and there was ribeyes. Man, I think we went through like 12 or 13 ribeyes between the four of us. You guys are out of control. I just want you guys to know that. Any other questions? Sorry, guys, I'm on my other monitor here real quick, cleaning up all those orders coming through for beers. One of these days, I'm going to make my wife come on here and shun you. Has spring hit us yet? Not at, well, technically, it's hard to say. So, 2 days ago, we woke up at like 55. And then that evening it was 28 and we had about 2 inches of snow. The next day we woke up at like 12 degrees. And then by that evening, everything was melted again at 55. So I would say it's about as spring as it's going to get here in North Dakota. Hey, if I started selling those eggs, I wouldn't be on here trying to convince you guys to buy me beers. Deep Thinker, yes. Tons of YouTube videos. We're also open to suggestions of YouTube content at any time as well. 80 degrees in not Los Angeles, for those of you out there thinking like me, but Louisiana. Is it humid, Travis? You'll have to let us know in chat. Any other questions, guys? Open it up to you guys. I might have to take a 5-minute break after drinking all this liquid, of course. I think some of you guys are probably due for a little bit of coffee, this afternoon coffee drink, right? I'm waiting to hear from Travis. Is he going to hold out on me? Like, Fusion Phil's going to take a break. No way. I will take negative 60-degree weather in my area long before I will ever deal with humidity again in my life. Unless I live in the Florida Keys. That's my only ruling. It's already humid. Yeah. Y'all get that wet snow. Humidity. Awesome, guys. I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. I will be right back. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send them in while you're here. Don't forget, you can always ask questions in chat as well. All right, we're back. Great to see that you guys are down there melting it out down in Texas and Louisiana. I will gladly not be a part of humidity ever again in my life. Except when I have to fly for work, which in a few weeks, anybody in the Northeast area out there? I know occasionally we get Matt Van Loo in here. That guy's probably busy today, but he's in the Northeast. I'm going to be up that way here probably in about 2 weeks nonetheless. But with that, I did have quite the question come in. Now, for those of you who are experts out there, I had a request come in for some MPT tapping on a part. Now, what I'm going to do here, you guys can still hear me and see me hopefully all right. It looks like it over on my other screen as well. Is I am going to go ahead and just populate a actual part to be able to do this on. So let's go ahead and do our rectangle, of course, and I'm going to throw a hole in the middle. Now, the hole size itself, if you guys are doing this for real, of course, obviously the specs of the hole, the design, the hole size works quite well. But under the manufacturer side, when I create my setup, I'm now going to do drilling, and I'm going to go out and try to find a tap. So let's go to the good old-fashioned Fusion library. We're looking for a tap, right-handed preferably. Now, you can see there is quite a few different taps inside of here at the end of the day. What we're looking for is a MPT tap. What you're not going to find is an MPT tap in here. So this is where you're going to have to create, of course, your own custom tap in this case. So if I go up here to the top, again, we're going to go to our file. I'm going to create a brand new tap. So we need to be in hole making right here. Tap right hand, and let's go ahead and start to plug in our information. Now, the thing is here is on an MPT tap, it is going to be tapered because it's designed to seal as you tighten it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to set up that information based on the information from the provider. Now, this is where things get a hair tricky. However, I could be wrong on this, and I could be 100% thinking, because I feel like MPT taps used to be in here. I am going to pull up, in this case, possibly a type of chart. Now, this is a loose, very loose tolerance chart, as you guys can see. But on that quarter MPT end, we're looking at an OD of a 1/2 inch, and then we're looking at a threads per inch of 18. Again, this is going to be tapered. However, for the case of what we're doing here, it's not going to overly matter because we need to set our speeds and feeds. Now, our pitch is what's going to control our feed rate. Let me go ahead and get that closed out now and get back over to chat. As you can see, is my pitch is going to be the most important part. So we're going to say 1 divided by 18. Oh, because it helps if you type inside the window. 1 divided by 18. So I have my 55 is going to actually be my feed rate if you're feeding in your actual threads per inch, right? So now my actual diameter again, let's say it's going to be 0.5. 1/2 inch. As you guys can see, we can't necessarily put in the taper to this tap, but what we can do, of course, now is plug in our speeds and feeds for our cutting data. I am, in this case, going to do 100 RPMs because, well, it's going to be a little brutal if you guys have ever used an MPT tap for tapping things, right? So as you can see, I now have my tap. I've now declared wherever we're going to tap that hole. And then upon posting out, of course, we're going to get our feeds and speeds basically based on the normal handbook of, I'm sorry, my brain, again, I'm out. Let's go to the Haas Next Gen post and let's see what it's going to give us. Is it going to give us inches per minute or feed per rev, right? So as you can see in the world of the Next Gen post by default, we're getting a feed rate in inches per minute. We're not getting a feed per rev, but we could always change that in our post. Now, again, I do this stuff so much, I always forget about it. How we could do the math on that, of course, you have 100 times 0.055. We move the decimal point 2. Technically, we're actually right at 5 inches per minute. If you wanted to edit your post, this is where it always becomes fun, right, guys? Is some of the posts by default have the logic built in if you come down to this lovely section where you have all of your actual settings for decimals, what is your formatting, things of that nature. So what we're looking for is one that is based on, if I could find it, sometimes it's here, sometimes it's not. They've also started to do some new things. So let's see here. Pitch output. There it is. So we have pitch output referencing pitch format. Pitch format up here is based on format underscore real, but this is creating, in this case, think about this for a sec. So there it is, feed per rev format, or you have your actual other format, pitch format. Man, I am so done with this day. So again, that is why. Now I know what's going on. So you have pitch format, and then you have feed per rev format. What I need to do is I need to copy feed per rev format, and I'm going to paste that back in down here in my pitch output, right? So again, I can copy and paste. I'm going to hit save. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually back that up for you guys here real quick, because I believe I am going to do this the proper way so that you guys know how to do it the proper way on your end. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the export CNC post. I'm going to create a custom posted file. And what that custom posted file is going to now allow me to do is, with my post open up, I can actually generate G-code here in real time. Again, right now we're basing everything off of a feed rate of feed per inch. Now, if we wanted to swap out to feed per rev, as you guys will see here, if I go back to that location and we paste in feed per rev format and I hit save, nothing has changed, which would lead me to believe that there's something else going on. Again, we could undo. And as I like to do is double click to get down to where, in this case, we have our writing cycle functions. Here's our write block. Again, I might have grabbed a left-handed tool. No, I did not. The logic here is for a tapping cycle. It's doing a 74 for left or an 84 for right. Pitch output dot format F, right? So again, as we have pitch output, so I may be mistaken. Again, guys, it's been a very long day on my end. Our pitch output, let's go ahead and change it from pitch format. Again, we're going to change it back to feed per rev format. And actually, I'm backwards. I'm completely backwards in my case. It's not pitch output on this post. Why do I always pick the wrong post? Pitch format, format real, decimals, yes. Trying to remember in my brain. It's been one of those days. You know what? Honestly, I am going to go ahead and just leave this one alone today. I'm not going to do it. You guys all got quiet in chat. You stopped hyping me up. There is, let's go ahead and say, so again, in this case, we did luck out because there is G95 for tapping, inches per minute for tapping. So we could say true here. And as you can see, it's now output G95. And then it, of course, is now switched to feed per rev. So as you can see, again, there is a setting in this post by default, which is why my brain is just not working properly. And again, that is because that property right there inside of Fusion, use G95. It then says tapping feed per minute. That's what I was looking for. This one in this case is tapping feed per minute. And then there's usually tapping inch per minute, which I don't think we're going to have. Yep. Cool pitch, RPM. There it is. So this post doesn't have it like I'm thinking because they are doing it based on that property in the post window to say, I want to post out in feed per minute versus feed per or inch per rev. I can't speak. I'm done. I'm closing this one out. What do you guys think? Is that working? Can we call it? The day over. David at 50 degrees this morning, and he's in Central Texas. Let's go. Any other questions from any of you guys out there? Anything else you want to see? I'll go ahead and open it up to each and every one of you guys want. Should I get you guys with the sales pitch? No, I was just on a break. That's mean. We go ahead and check the emails real quick. Anybody send anything in? I'm not seeing much here. Anything else here going on? Let's see. So, gotta shoot an email out real quick, though, in the meantime. All right, let's get back to it. Where are you guys at? How's everybody doing? It's pretty quiet out there. You guys even hear me? You even see me? Did I disconnect and down the internet again? Ash Design! There he is. Another guy in chat. Let's go. You know what? So you want to do it. Okay, this is a good question. So Ash is asking about tool automatically update cutter wear based on probing, but he only wants to do it every 3 or 4 M30 cycles. So this is one of those things that you kind of start to get into an expert of being macros inside of Autodesk Fusion, because something that would work really good in his scenario, I am going to build this out here real quick. Let's get rid of this tool. Let's just say we are going to do inspection, probe geometry right here. And let's get down here. Did you guys see that they've now started to incorporate the machines right here? So you could put your machines, your tools right on your machine. So let's go down a little bit further. So we're looking for a probe. There is our probing cycle. We got to go ahead and adjust a few things because that's such a small bore. Approach is 0.1. There we go. There's our probing cycle, and then if he was to chase that down now, we're going to do our bore. Do bore. Let's not do contour. And we're going to use cutter comp. So we're going to set wear. So this is a good one that I think it would be really nice if Autodesk was to incorporate this by default. But at the end of the day, he is going to go in, cut that bore, and then what he's wanting to do is he's wanting to probe every so many cycles, right? So this is dependent on your controller, but a quick way you can kind of cheat the system is you're going to use manual NC, and then I prefer a pass-through. But now this is where you need that ideas of macros, because what you're going to write is an if statement for your machine. Now, I'm just going to save this because there is a kind of a cheap way that you can jump and get that information. Is if we were to post this out, some of the post processors, again, every post is a little different, but you do have posts that have the ability to do looping and things of that nature. So I'm trying to see if the Haas post has looping. I don't think it does by default, but if we went to something like a Fanic post, and again, you can look up the Haas looping and things of that nature, but what we're basically going to do is we're going to write a looping program, or you're going to write a situation, and I don't know if this guy has looping in it either. Subroutines, no, we would actually have to go, I'm thinking lathe looping. But what I would do in my case is I would write 2 manual NCs, right? And it would be based off a parameter. If, again, it's been a while. If we said if blank, 501 equals 4 or something, what'll happen is it'll look at that parameter based on a counter, right? So you may even need to write a counter type situation, and then you could always do a go to in that and set a specific end number, right? So let's say I say N150 down here. Go to, gotta do capital. What is it? I gotta remember. Like go to 150 or something, right? So what's gonna happen is we're basically writing out our own little counter program. So what'll happen is it will jump that program. That's the whole idea here. And if we look at trying to think of the quickest way to pull this up for you guys, what we would have to do is technically fake post this on a lathe of some sort. What do we got in here? I think the Washion has a looping program. It does. So here's the looping program built inside of this in this case. Again, M98 looping, an internal loop is what it's building, and then how many you want. This is not going to post out because we don't have a lathe part pulled up, but the logic inside the program will actually put it out. So again, is whatever that call out is, you could say, what is it? If n equals 4, M98, I think it is, what is it, M98 P150 internally, or it's going to be a go-to command, right? That's how I would do it, Ash. I hope that kind of helps you out and points you in the right direction. Obviously, you can go to Haas's website or Haas's YouTube and find a looping, use M98 to loop. Again, you could do M98 down and back. You could also, again, set a parameter in your controller as a parts counter outside of everything. And then when that comes up on that cycle, you could, of course, go back and set it up. Trying to find a quick macro programming variable here. Looks like they have an entire manual on that on the Haas website. That would be a good place to look at the end of the day. But what you're basically going to do is you're going to set your own macro, which is going to cause, again, if example 500 equals 21, that's when variable 500 turns to 21, do something, right? So again, it might be as simple as put your probing at the end so that when that counter gets to a certain place, you can jump down and come back. Again, like I was saying with the go-tos, the M99s, so forth and so on. And thinking about it, because the probing cycle does the same thing, so you would almost have to do, what is it? Trying to think of the best way. You would do like an if something equals blank or if something minus something equals blank type of statement. That would work as well. Let me know, Ash, if that's going to help you out at all. Again, you feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to help troubleshoot it as much as I can on my end. Obviously, you're getting into the specifics a little bit, but the idea is still the same, that you can plug that in with a pass-through once you get that block of code, which causes you to jump that probing cycle and go down to wherever you place that call out. Any other questions outside of that? You guys are jumping in, jumping out. It looks like we're keeping about 20 plus people in here all week this week. A lot of you are considered regulars, just like I'm considered world famous, right? But for 24 of you in here right now, either I'm going to assume that Travis and Deep Thinker are probably going wild in Discord right now. But does anybody else have any other questions or anything else they would like to see today or problems they ran into this week? Guess I should check my phone too. For some reason, a lot of times you guys like to message me on my phone. The datum reference, which, did I miss your message, Deep Thinker? Oh, no. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, creating that point in space, you can do it with a joint origin. You can't do it like you're thinking in real time in the setup area. You got to go to the design side. You stuck around. I love it. What are you talking about, Travis? Manic can definitely run subroutines and subprograms. Yeah, in the case of what you guys are hearing right now, what Deep Thinker is trying to do is, like, let's say, for example, you want it to, like, use this edge and this edge for your probing, but you want it to be on center over here. When you go ahead and try to do a setup, by default, your only options really is setting a selected point. But as you can see, I can't pull a point between two faces. So I'm either destined to be on this corner or destined to be on this corner. So with that, if we go back to design, and his whole thing is he doesn't like the idea of jumping back and forth to design, and I agree with him. The idea of a joint origin, in my case, I think you should be able to do this in the actual other side in the manufacturer workspace, because I could simply say between two faces here, and this is where this is going to haunt me. We got to get the stock out of the way. There we go. But let's go ahead and create our joint origin in this case. I think we got a sketch face now on the way. Get that out of there. Profile 1. So it's not, again, you know what? Let's see here real quick. There's our part. Oh, because our part is linked. So this is another headache with this. This is why I love doing this stuff live with you guys, because you either have to break the link, or in this case, I would actually have to go all the way out, edit and place, right? And then, again, we need to get that stock out of the way. Where was that stock? There it is. And now I can create my joint origin between two faces, here and here. And then I would like it based on this point. And now you guys can see that edit and place because of everything being linked. Again, we can finish that edit and place. And now I can use that joint origin for my setup. Now, again, Autodesk, if you guys watch this video, it would be nice to be able to do joint origins, because as a lot of people have realized with doing tool orientation, you can control that off a joint origin. But kind of like in the world of Mastercam, you could set almost a WCS position and then always use that joint origin to your advantage. But as you guys can see here, I could come in now. We could say selected point is this joint origin, and now that is my perfect datum for anything I do. But as I've kind of already led to now, is if you wanted to, in the world of multi-axis, you can actually go in and you could set your coordinate system off of a joint origin as well. So if I was to go in here, I could pick that joint origin, and that joint origin is now my coordinate system for reference of X, Y, and Z for tilting. Let me jump back over here real quick and see what the hustle bustle is about talking about my FANUC controls. Long reach tool sounds awesome. 1500 RPMs and 11 inches per minute. There you go. The smarts don't. Travis, that's not a FANUC problem. That is smart not unlocking the parameters to do so. Are you running from the memory card, or are you running straight off the controller? Give you a second here to answer that. Elijah, make sure you give your boy a shout out on Instagram when you're posting them videos. Not the broken tool ones. I don't want any association with the broken tool unless it's the... I don't need to be seeing no Fusion Phil broke this end mill. Should we dive into a little bit of lathe stuff? Let's go ahead and pull open a lathe part. Travis is out here claiming that you can't do subroutines. So that you're running directly from the memory card, which presumably I would assume that is why it can't do a subroutine. But I do know at the end of the day, if you were doing something, and in this case, if I post-process this, and I'm going to put it on the Samsung mill turn machine, you do have the M98 looping internally, but the Samsung post itself does not support sub-programs or subroutines. So this is where, again, we could always add that and adjust it. But if we went to something like the Washion, I think has it. No, it doesn't. Of course not. Nothing but liars today. I tell ya. Puma got it? No. These lathes, I tell ya, they're the worst. Let's go to the old faithful, right? DN Solutions post, baby. And I'm missing it here. You guys could tell me if I'm. I must be either I'm missing it or I'm just crazy. I know Milling Post have it. Haas has it? You think? Give me a sec here. I gotta go through everything real quick. I'll go check a Haas post right here. Do I have any Haas posts in here by default? Let's see. ES30Y. Looping, yes. But no subprograms. I know it's in milling. That's for sure. Yeah, no subprograms or subroutines and lathe toolpaths, apparently. All right, Elijah in here again with another one. Well, so Deep Thinker, what I would do is instead of running subroutines, what we would do is we would run subprograms, and we would use M198. So you would put your main program on the control, and then you would jump to the memory card for each one of the subprograms. That works really, really well. So Elijah's question, he's got another one. He's really milking out these two beers right now. But using Fusion and a Haas, my machine uses dog leg. It's scrapped apart before. What is it, and how do I get rid of it? So is that the lathe or is that a mill, Elijah? I'll give you a second to answer. Again, anybody out there, feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to go ahead and check the support. Make sure nobody has populated. All right, getting back. A couple of emails going out. Ask VF1. Okay. Make it do a cat leg. Travis is on it. This dude is just sending them. Awesome. So, well, so it depends on when it's doing it in your actual posted G code, Elijah. So a couple of things, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when posting, let's get a mill part here so that we can start off on the right leg. So when I post-process this inside the actual post-processor itself, so now I can't edit this one because it is associated from the cloud. So what I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to go find another Haas post that I can butcher today. Let's go into my local folder. Those are Haas pre-NGCs. Let's get a newer post here. I'm not going to, let's just go ahead and grab a brand new version. Where is it? Next gen control. All right, let's copy this guy over and let's paste it. And then let's get, oh, I guess I had a copy in my local. There we go. So I'm going to edit this post processor. Now, make sure that you have the latest and greatest post, because if you Control F the word home, for example, you have things like the ability to set a true statement here for homing on certain situations, but you also have it down here on home XY, right? So as you can see, this is where we are controlling when it homes and then what axis it actually homes on. For example, on indexing, it says home X and then the Y axis, right? What single line will do, if you add single line in, it will force one, then the other, right? So this is where you could control that inside of your actual G code. Again, using the debugger and everything that I've showed you guys how to use. As you can see, you install the Autodesk Fusion Post Properties tool. I can come down and say CNC selector, milling. Let's just create a simple toolpath. And now at the end of this program right now, you're seeing that it is sending itself home in X and Y. If I was to remove said Y and hit save, Notice how it's sending home X, then Y, right? So again, this is one of those things that depending on how you put it in, and this is the end of the program, of course, so there is some other factors here, but you can control, again, where it goes and when it goes there. Again, if we did a tool change, for example, I think this will be a little better one for you guys, is right here at the end, we went ahead and only went home in Z in this case. So on tool change, I want to plug in this block of code. Again, we're going to overlay the false. I'm going to hit save. And now you're noticing we have our XY, which is still a dog leg. Bear with me. Again, if we did just X, went ahead and highlighted everything. We're only getting that GX output. Now, if we have X and Y, go ahead and move this over a little bit. Remember, we could scroll to the right with these lovely notes, and we could actually add a comma single line. And then we should be able to change that to either true or false, depending on what we're looking for. By leaving it as false, it has now moved the Y down below. So if you're really getting technical with this and you want Y to go home first, then X, again, I can just reverse what I have here. So again, we're going to say Y first, then X. And as you're going to see is now it is a Y home position first, then an X position. So again, not to dog leg, because that dog leg is coming from that XY call out. We could even, if you really wanted to, this is where we get super wild, right? Because you guys love to party. We already have Z called out higher up here. Oh, man. Now we jumped all the way down to the bottom. Let's get back to the top here. Again, we were in the section. Where is it? Home. So if you didn't have both the X, Y, and Z already called out, we could say X, Z, and then, or Y, Z, X. And then again, it would put it in there. But again, remember, G53 is a modal command. We've already called that out higher up. So there's no reason to add it in there again. Ken out there with all the excitement, yelling like crazy. But as you can see, again, Elijah, that should be able to help you out as you're seeing is we can go ahead and plug in specific accesses or only certain accesses based in a pattern of which one you want. This would prevent your dog leg moves. Now, something for you guys all to keep in mind, because the post is ran from, or the machine sim is ran by the post, this post in itself, when I set this, will also control it on the machine sim side. Guy went full cap locks in chat. That's worth a beer, right? We penalize him? Make him buy one? Live part alignment in Fusion. I can go over that, Ken. I also have a video on it. We're getting down to the wire right now, so what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to go ahead and grab that video from my channel. Have you watched the video that I've done on live part alignment? At least I think I did a video. Am I wrong? You guys want to see it? We could just do it live. So what I'm going to do, Ken, let's go ahead and pop back out of here. And I'm going to use this lovely part that was provided to us by Scott. What I'm going to do is, as I have my setup already created, the first thing I need to do is I need to create basically a probing cycle. Now, if you go into an inspection, you could start, of course, by doing the part alignment setting. This will allow you to create your inspection points inside of there, or you can create your inspect surface outside of the part alignment and convert it over. So if we do a part alignment, we need to determine how do we want to align. Again, 3-axis is just X, Y, Z, of course. 4-axis would include a rotary axis, and 5 means out in space in every direction possible, right? So results for calculation, as you're seeing, is we don't have any results currently. So what I need to do is now do my inspect surface, right? So this is where we collect our data points. I'm not going to put a ton on here. But let's say, for example, we're actually going to go back and do this based on 4th axis only, and I want to do it strictly on the Z axis of rotation. So again, we got to give this guy a lovely tool to work with. There's my probing inspect surface routine. Again, if I edit my part alignment down here, let's say 4th axis around the Z axis. Again, what this is allowing me to do is to literally go in and twist my C. And now it's not twisting the C axis at the controller. I want to make that clear. What it's doing is it's shifting the G code here in Fusion to match. So again, we would actually post this out for alignment, which means we need to send it to the machine to collect everything. In this case, I have a fancy dancy tool that allows me to generate points. So if you guys haven't seen this before, trying to see if I have it inside of anywhere. There's an Autodesk post for results generator. So if maybe you don't have a machine or you're looking at a machine, we could go ahead and select that post. What it's going to do is it's going to spit out all of this data randomly that I'm going to pull back in here. So let's make sure we throw this in a folder I can get to. So I've now generated my results. This is what your machine would have spit out, basically. You've ran the alignment at the controller, and now you could do a live connection alignment, but these are the data points coming back to the Fusion. So again, we now can import our results. Select my results file from my desktop here. This is where I always have fun because I can't remember. There it is, the text file. And as you can see, this is my collection of points. There's some variances here. Again, if you want to start to look into the details of it, you guys completely can. So from that, I could actually view results, if I could remember where it's at. Might have to do this one other way. Up here at the top, of course, is always going to be your best friend. So again, thinking about my part kind of being askew, right? So as you can see, based on those data points, it's thinking that my part is rotated a little bit. So again, as you can see, the rotation around Z is 0.04 degrees. So again, that's what it's going to do. It's now going to take my G code and it's going to shift. It's also showing a little bit of a shift in Y axis. So as you can see, when we would go out now to run this part, I could post with alignment, meaning it's going to post all of my tool paths now with that shift calculated in there. Ken, does that answer your question? I'll give you a second to talk about. What's your other question, Ken? We're here for you, man. All of us are absolutely waiting. You guys see I set a goal for you guys for $2 in Super Chat? It's expiring in 4 minutes and 30 seconds. That's for all my my over the seas peoples. Give me a sec here. I jumped over to the other screen real fast. I'm going to come back here in a second to see Ken's question, hopefully. Ken's getting wild. He seems like a party animal. Guy's fumbling through messages, yelling in chat. He seems like my people. When would you want to or not want to live part alignment? Now, this is a really good question. So, let's say, for example, you're doing a casting, and a casting is not precise by any means, but I need to align, again, based on probing a lot of that casting, I want to best fit basically whatever part or wherever those like landings are and features you're milling into a casting, or even a weldment works really, really good because we could average out all those collected points, and those collected points would allow you to best fit your part within the constraints of what you have there. Several other things out there. If you have a really bad jig and fixture system going on, a part that's a pain in the ass to hold, excuse my language, all of that stuff is perfect candidates for part alignment. Now, outside of part alignment, I have quite a bit of people that instead of doing a part alignment, they're actually doing just like part inspection with the probe on every cycle. Again, depending on how critical your parts are, how precise and how accurate you need to be, these are all factors that I would put in place So whether or not is it worth your time, is it worth your effort? Autodesk does a really good video on like a part that was sent to the anodizer, brought back, and then they need to engrave on it. But where the engraving goes is very critical, and they're holding it with 3D printed soft jaws because of part alignment, right? So it's one of those things that part alignment in itself, very, very fancy, very, very good. I love it. It works great. It allows you to think outside the box on work holding because, again, is what we're going to do is align everything, mainly in a 5-axis environment. We can align it quite well to what we're doing, right? Ken, does that answer your question? So the difference between live part alignment versus just normal part alignment is nothing more than the connection between you and your machine. So on Haas machines, as well as a few other machine manufacturers, you could actually have Fusion running a true to the machine live inspection. So as soon as the inspection's done, it will send the results back to actual Fusion 360. As you can see, I have my inspection results down here at the bottom of my screen, and this is basically all my collection points to what we've done. Now, it will automatically go back and forth between the machine and communicate. The bad news is that you get to reach out to me at the info@ email down below so that my sales reps can sell you an additional seat of Fusion, because while it's doing that part alignment and that live connection, you usually don't want to be using that seat of Autodesk Fusion. Now, I've heard people have been able to use it. I also recommend hardwiring. The normal part alignment, as you saw here today, Ken, you would have to thumb drive manually back and forth. But the good news is if you're running this, and let's say your customer isn't making very precise parts, and we're talking tenths, right? Down in the tenths for you guys. Now, they want an inspection of every part. Well, we could dump every inspection out into a file, and then you could just track that right off the controller and not need to be live connected. Ken, I hope that answers your question. Any more from Ken? In the meantime, while he types stuff up in chat, I'm going to hit you guys with the good old-fashioned sales pitch. You guys know how to support our channel, and we love the support. Jordan is probably drinking a Celsius right now because you guys last week, we donated all the beers to Jordan for his Celsius in his House of Pain workout room at his house over in Fargo. That said, you guys can also buy me a beer, which a lot of you guys bought me beers today. Quite a wild time. Way too many beers. I am going to have a blast this weekend. Outside of that, you also have the ability to buy Autodesk software directly through us at jitcadcam. We also do things like hosting trainings, post-processor work outside of this, in-person trainings. I mean, the sky's the limit with what you could do with Fusion, and we're here to support you guys in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over it. Looks like we have one more question. What is this last question? You are doing a part on a 3-axis that is not perfectly flat. Can you use a part alignment doing something like an engraving to vary Z while tracing? So technically, yes, you can at the end of the day, because we're manipulating the G code. We're not really shifting. You can shift A, B, and C axis, but based on the fact that you're doing a 3-axis alignment, you should be able to, again, it's kind of like if it was flat, you're tilting said flat, not like tilting and bowing, if that makes sense. I could always dive into that more over the weekend and get you a little better answer on that. Any other questions? Guys, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You all know Fusion Phil, Fanic Phil, Party Phil over here at jitcadcam, and we are here for you. This is why we do this every weekend. Ken coming in at the last minute with $10 in Super Chat right after the goal expired, of course. Ken, we appreciate it. I am going to drink those beers also this weekend. So if my wife gets on here next week and yells at you guys, this is all about you. But we are here for you. We continue to do this content for you. It seems like you guys enjoy it. We need recommendations on content. Bring us your problems throughout the week. We're happy to help in any way we can. And as always, because Travis isn't working this weekend and some of you are, I hope you all have time to relax this weekend and get back to it on Monday. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.